Hey everybody, I am back with another review for you. This is for a film called The Border, which came out in 1982, starring Jack Nicholson and Harvey Keitel. It is a neo-noir thriller film, which I'm sure when many of you think of Jack Nicholson and noir, you rightly think of Chinatown rather than The Border. This was one I was not really familiar with, so I decided to give it a chance. And I apologize, I have some notes here. There's really a lot that I want to say, and I don't want to leave out any pertinent plot points or thoughts that I had kind of come up with. So, in essence, Jack Nicholson is a corrupt immigration officer when we meet him. He is living in California in this ramshackle trailer with his wife. And his wife is a bit of an airhead, and she's a social climber. She wants what she can't have materially. And she finds out that her best friend is living in El Paso, and she's got this beautiful condominium next door to hers, and she asks Jack Nicholson's wife to move in next to her. And so Marcy, Jack Nicholson's wife in the film, kind of convinces him that it's in both of their best interests to move down to El Paso, and he can take a job in Border Patrol. And so begrudgingly he decides to do just that to kind of appease his wife, and they move down to El Paso. And the best friend's husband, Cat, kind of helps Jack Nicholson get situated. He's a Border Patrol agent, so he kind of hooks Jack Nicholson's character up. And so pretty early on in their dealings here, Charlie, Jack Nicholson's character, sees that things are a little bit off, that the situation's rather corrupt down there at the border. And Charlie, in confidence, is apprised of a very lucrative scheme which essentially entails the smuggling of immigrants into the country. And at first, Charlie, Jack Nicholson, wants absolutely nothing to do with this. But as his wife's spending habits become more and more immoderate, she buys a waterbed, she puts in an in-ground pool, she buys new furniture. He decides that he really has no other choice than to go along with the scheme, rather than try to curtail his wife's spending habits. And he gets involved pretty deeply in this little kind of trafficking scheme, and he goes along with it up until someone that's being shuttled into the country is actually murdered. Jack Nicholson then wants no part of that. And contemporaneously, while all this is going on, Jack Nicholson is starting to see, boy, it's not worth the extra money that I'm making going through what I'm going through, seeing people die, innocent people die. There's a lot of the Mexican immigrants in the film are kind of recurring characters, even though they really have no lines. In multiple scenes, he might detain the same group of immigrants that were sneaking into the country, and it's his job to shuttle them back, and this kind of happens multiple times throughout the film. And one of these specifically these Mexican immigrants, is really a young woman who has a newborn child. And Jack Nicholson, midway through the film, realizes that not only is what he's doing terrible, that he's sort of engaging in this really illicit scheme, this unlawful scheme where people are getting killed. He kind of develops a conscience, and he sees that this poor mother, what she has to go through trying to bring up a new baby into the world, and she's just trying to come into the United States for a better life. He takes it upon himself to ensure that she gets into the country safely at all costs. So that's basically what the premise of the film is. And there were a few things that I liked, and there were a few things that I didn't like. And one of the things that I really didn't like is that there's just an overall lack of tension in the film. The stakes never really feel like they're high enough. So what I would cite as an example for this lack of tension is one of the interactions kind of midway through the film. between Kat and Charlie, where Kat really sort of subtly informs him that, hey, there's these clandestine dealings. I would love for you to be involved with them. It's a significant way for you to make money because I know your wife has a pretty big spending habit. And so at that point, Charlie outright refuses. And you would think that in that refusal, then that would really escalate the situation. That Kat and the higher up that's also involved in the scheme might in some way threaten Jack Nicholson's life. But there's really no ramifications at that moment for their refusal to be part of the scheme. That he just continues. They both just continue doing their jobs normally, and there's no threat and there's no fear for his life. So there was a lot of those moments. The tension really doesn't ramp up until the end, and by the time it does ramp up, it's just I don't know. It's not quite so rewarding. So that was one of the things that I really don't like. And the other thing I really didn't like was the character of his wife. And I wrote here that she feels like less of a character and more like an artifice or an accessory. Her prodigal spending habits in so many of these instances are what propels the plot forward, and ultimately, it's what gets Jack Nicholson to go along with these schemes. And his character never really has this organic conversation with his wife to ask her to stop. There's kind of like this wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and he says, you can't do this anymore, and they kind of laugh it off. But it just continues and continues incessantly, and as the story moves forward, the things that she's buying become prohibitively costly, and he has really no other choice than to undertake this unlawful mission. And there's actually one point in the film where he strikes her, and he's so guilt-riddled that he allows for her spending habits to be perpetuated even more. So there was no real sense of, he never really sat her down and had this serious conversation with her, say, you can't do it. She just continued to do it on her own, and he really did nothing to stop her until he hit her and snapped, and then that was, again, he felt really guilty afterwards. So I didn't really care for her character. She didn't seem to add anything to the film. And towards the end, I guess I'll kind of give it away that there's a Hollywood shootout style ending, and it so much betrays the sincerity and the earnestness of really what the plot was, which is just this kind of introspective drama in so many ways. It's Jack Nicholson realizing that he wants to be a part of something good. He wants to be a good force in society, and this Hollywood shootout ending really detracts from that, and it just felt like a cheap trick. So that was the bad, but the good is the sensational acting for the most part, and it's especially I have to commend Jack Nicholson for this role, because this is so antithetical to these larger than life type roles that you're used to seeing Jack Nicholson, and he's this authentic, contrite, subdued character. And when I think of Jack Nicholson, I think of this overly expressive and angry persona, and that's really not Jack Nicholson, Charlie's character in the film. There are moments where he really starts to lose it, and you can tell he's kind of losing it, and then he certainly voices his displeasure. He gets really angry. But it was unlike really any other Jack Nicholson role that I've seen him in, and I really, really appreciated it, and I respected it. Respected him for being able to, I guess, to constrain his emotions. Not to say that, that the other Jack Nicholson there's in any way anything wrong with that, but this is just a very, very different character than I'm used to seeing him play, and he really, really did a good job in playing, again, this sort of pensive character that's at the end of his rope. And again, maybe he's sort of puts up with his wife's behavior because he loves her, and at the end of the day, that's really all that he cares about. But you do see this gradual decline into madness, into him, maybe not madness, but into him really, really becoming very upset. So I thought that was great, and Harvey Keitel is great as well. The landscape, the scenery, again, it's neo-Western type. If you liked No Country for Old Men, this is kind of going to be another choice that I would recommend for you. It's nowhere near as compelling as No Country for Old Men, but this would be more of a hidden gem type film that not a lot of people have heard about. It's certainly one that I haven't heard about, so I would recommend it. I would recommend it to see Jack Nicholson and how good he is. And again, the very basic premise of the film is very compelling, and it's especially pertinent right now with what's going on in the world. So I would recommend it. I would say see it. I would say maybe it's a 7 out of 10, but it's something that deserves more attention, and it deserves a watch. So give it a shot, and I will hopefully be back for you with another review soon. Thank you.